Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, this video was recorded and I'm sharing from Delicious Cake and a whole bunch of numbers. And so, nothing like more child labor videos. I mean, honestly, they're peppered throughout the world, and the algorithm keeps increasing exponentially. Scientology fair gamers. So you 20 people sitting in your basement right now, it's not going to cut it.
David says he doesn't have a problem with people studying Scientology. He doesn't think it's worth it, but says people should have the choice.
But the church...
Notice how they say people. Again, like I said, you guys, they blanket the word child. So they often will say parishioners, which is going to mean children or child, unless they're specifically talking about an adult in Scientology or adults in Scientology. They also blanket children with members. What else do they call them? Right here they said people.
The structure of the church, I believe that should be dismembered brick by brick. And I personally believe it is happening.
Anybody who's in the know will understand what the brick by brick means. And also, people have been ringing the alarm regarding this child trafficking and child labor. Abuses toward children, neglect of children, physical abuse of children, child sexual assaults. What else? Taking away the child's ability to be educated, which by most United States statutes is considered child neglect. Not providing enough nutritional food for the child is considered neglect. Not providing warm and adequate clothing is neglect. Take that to the bank.
David has even joined the worldwide protests held by a group called Anonymous, calling for Scientology to be outlawed. They're both children.
Yeah. Well, he's like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And Chloe's about 15 or 16.
Young girl should be in...
These people are feeding off the children. In fact, child labor is what is paying for Los Angeles Police Department's overtime. Isn't that fantastic, you guys? Any monetary compensation that the Clearwater Police Department is getting is paid by child labor. So imagine grown, men accepting overtime payments that have been provided by child labor. Police officers. Okay, young girl.
School. Is she getting homeschooling?
No.
Well, they would say she is.
Well, there's a couple of hours a day that she gets.
Who, this one here?
Yeah, that's unsupervised.
So right there, you guys, that was an ex-Scientologist that actually had a conscience and was upset about what was happening with the children. You don't get to see that very often, do you? I sure didn't see it in Render, and there were quite a few ex-Scientologists that I did not see that in.
Supervised and untested. Our source claims only 2 of the children get that. The rest, he says, get no homeschooling.
Well, the official...
They also have this uncanny ability to dance around the laws. I remember either watching a video or reading an article or both And there was this really funky thing that the Scientologists were doing with the, how do I explain this? They were parlaying around I believe they were private schooled or boarding school. I think they considered them, and they call themselves a boarding school. So then if it's a boarding school, they could get around all these laws. But there were a few certain things that they needed to do by law to get the children qualified, or to get them either a GED or some type of certification. And a lot of the child Scientologists that later grew up into adults and explained what happened, they were given these tests by so-called officials, and then they were basically coached on everything that was going to be in the test, and then given the test, and then they would pass, but they really didn't do the things that were required to get this, whatever certification it was. So of course they're just like experts at circumventing all laws. And everybody, government officials, Immigration and Naturalization Services, Homeland Security, FBI, all these different so-called agencies that are supposed to be in place to protect children, they're either okay with it, or they're non-compliant with the laws, or complicit. Since when is it okay to abuse children on this level? Since when is that?
That is what the org will tell you, is that they get homeschooling. But when I was last there was 2 of them that were getting at most 2 hours a day unsupervised.
We spoke to one former child Scientologist who is no longer part of the group. She was always what they do is they do the very least that is required by law. They're especially good at getting around all the child labor laws. They are expert at it. In all the agencies, people working at the agencies sign off on it. So some of them do homeschooling, which in my opinion is just a license to abuse the children even more. There was something weird that they were doing when Nathan Rich was at the Lower Ranch, excuse me, in New Mexico. I forget exactly what was done there, but they didn't get any real true schooling. still too upset to appear on camera, though she has written an account of her time in Scientology.
The manual labour was exhausting. I wasn't sleeping well, averaging 5 hours a night. The food was so awful, I couldn't bear to eat anything more than toast and bits of salad.
That's child neglect.
I had already been verging on the side of emaciated when I was living in Melbourne. I was unspeakably miserable, but there was no way out.
We've also been contacted by other former Scientologists claiming this happens in Sydney and in every city where Scientology has set up here. I've repeatedly invited the Church of Scientology to respond to our story. They refused to speak with me.
Deny, 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 deny.
But through a third party, Scientology spokesperson Vicky Dunstan says that this story she knows came from David Graham, that he has real problems. In fact, as you've seen, the story did not come from David Graham. She says there are 5 children being homeschooled in the Melbourne branch and they are above average. They love being there with their parents. No children.
Shore stories. We all know that they're not with their parents. And that's the parents' faults. It's called parental responsibility.
Children, she says, work 40 hours a week. They simply run the odd errand.
Brian Seymour has been hitting us for a year.
Look at how they lie, you guys. They just lie and lie and lie. And it's all coming out now. It cannot be stopped. Just like me.
He has a campaign to destroy us and is working with Anonymous. There is no campaign. I'm not working with any protest group. I'm simply reporting something that more and more ex-Scientologists are desperate for you to hear. What do you want to see happen?
I want to see the contract brought out into the public.
And here it is, a Scientology staff contract. It commits the...
So they got the staff contracts as well. How long ago was this? I believe this was in 2010. It's 15 years ago. And you know what was done about it? Nothing. But now they can't stop it because the internet, you just can't. So guess what, Scientology? Your time is ticking.
minors who sign it to a 2.5 or 5 year stint as a Scientology staff member. Among the 30 conditions and commitments, a promise that you are not with the media and you don't have...
Also, you guys, they're actually still openly recruiting children. So you have the Scientology parents that are in, you have the second generations, the third generations, and probably now the fourth generation. But you also have them openly recruiting children, which is also illegal.
Debts that will stop you paying for things. That your parents are not against Scientology. You have no history of or treatment for mental illness. Have you complained about this to the authorities?
Yes.
Victoria's Workplace Ombudsman is investigating Scientology's employment of children. The Victorian Department of Education says it will base its inquiries on information we've provided to them.
And what happened because of it?
Study that he gets is Scientology study. That's learning how to be a staff member.
What about numeracy, literacy, English, basic, rudimentary sociology, history,
No.
physical education?
It's how they keep the children illiterate. Another method of control. Do you see how many levels of control they have on the children? Yes, they have it on the adults. I honestly, the adults are not my priority. You've got illiteracy. That's one control. You have them going through everyone's mail, monitoring. Sometimes they monitor people's phones. You have disconnection of anyone who questions anything about Scientology, whether they're a relative or whether they're not a relative, which you are participating in. If you willingly disconnect from your family member, that's you making a choice. So you have disconnection as another level of control. You have the freeloader's debt, which is another method of control that is not lawful. It cannot be used in a court of law. You have the separation of the parents and the children. That's another method of control. You have complete isolation of the children. All of the ranches are really far out in the country, for the most part. Like the one that Nathan Rich talks about. So there's the isolation. Then they have the isolation. They're often really good at splitting up the Scientology married couples, which, I think a lot of marriages don't have a chance in there. That's why you see people married 2, 3, 4 times. And then they will purposely move the husband to Australia while the wife is in the United States. What a completely miserable organization. And then they also have the auditing, where they get everybody's personal thoughts and information that they blackmail with That's another method of control. And it's well known within the confines of Scientology that R-ing children and R-ing women, and occasionally men, is permissible. And nothing will happen to the perpetrator. So it's like a RAPE farm.
Art, none of this.
Correct.
Scientology 100%.
Yes.
Why do they do it? Because of their belief that only Scientology will save mankind. A belief built on the story of an alien named Xenu, who millions of years ago supposedly brought alien entities to Earth and blew them up in volcanoes around the world. Today we are all inhabited by these alien beings.
At the end of the day, Scientology is a business that operates as a cult, pretending to be a religion. So it gets away with it because of that.
Tomorrow, an exclusive interview with the Hollywood star who's left the church over its beliefs and conviction about making money. Welcome back, everybody. So,
I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.